I took up this job. I don't feel the vibe. Let's find something more. I went to something else. It's not paying me enough. Let's find something else. There's this perpetual chase to find happiness, to find their zone. And I think that's the disadvantage they have. I've started 7 businesses till date in the last 17 years. Failed gloriously at 3. World has changed today. Today, when you start a business, you are at a disadvantage. Your employees dictate more terms to you. You'll find new bosses who technically in hierarchy are lower than you, but you got to fulfill their desires. Choose one idea, persist with it, get it right. Don't just discard it very quickly. Don't treat your business like a dating site where you're just going on dates. Build a relationship with one idea. If you don't put 70 hours, then an Infosys wouldn't have gotten built, which is a reality. But does everyone want to build that? It's a question.
Hello and welcome to My Way. Today on the podcast, we speak to Rajiv Talreja. He actually needs no introduction. If you are on social media, you'll probably know him by now. He's a marketing coach, he's a business coach, and he's been an entrepreneur as well as he's written a book. So here he is with us on the show. Rajiv, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me here.
So, it's a very interesting time, right? There's lots happening on social media, and I have watched your work over the last many years. It's phenomenal to see how you're not only advising people to grow their business, but at the same time, you're growing your own space. You're growing your brand, your own business. So, first, just for the benefit of our viewers, tell us a little bit about your life, your journey.
So I started as an entrepreneur in 2006. I started with a corporate training company, and the thought process was that if I can help large organizations improve their performance and results, it'll give me a lot of joy. And I thought it'll also satisfy not just from a job point of view, but from a J point of view as well. So that was the thought process. For the first 10 years as an entrepreneur, I didn't get my model right. I just played the pure passion game. So I love doing what I do. I love teaching. I love facilitating. I love coaching. And it took me 10 years to knock sense into my own head that business is not just passion. It's a combination of passion and profits. You got to get both right for it to be sustainable. So in 2014, I went on a journey to interview 300 business leaders from across India. So I interviewed the likes of Kiran Mazumdar Shaw, Ashok Soota, C.K. Kumaravel across different industries to understand the psychology of building a business and the best practices and systems of building a business. That was a revelation for me after being an entrepreneur for 8 years. So I said, if being an entrepreneur for 8 years in the performance management and personal development space, I am learning so much, then I can only imagine what impact it will have when I take this information out to the world. So that's when I compiled my research, published a book. The book flew, and suddenly I had businesses, MSME business owners reaching out saying, can you help us implement these learnings in our business? So I pivoted from large organizations to micro, small, and medium enterprise business owners. And over the last 7.5 years, we built a community of 3.5 lakh business owners whom we've served, a team of 125 people who's handholding these entrepreneurs to scale. So yeah, in short, that's been the primary story. There have been secondary stories in the primary story of different businesses that I've experimented with. Have started 7 businesses till date in the last 17 years. Failed gloriously at 3, and 4 are in the works right now that I'm building.
Okay, it's great to fail, right? You always learn from your failures.
I think that's where you actually evolve. You hate failure when you're in it. It feels nice to talk about it like a wise man
hindsight.
in hindsight. But yeah, it's the best teacher. There's no two ways about it.
Okay, so for someone who has helped people build businesses and someone who has built businesses himself, what is the biggest challenge for starting a business right now?
I think there's too much noise. I think most people are making decisions of starting a particular business or pursuing a particular idea purely out of FOMO. Okay, because you hear so much, you read so much, you consume so much information that you almost don't know what is your idea, what is it that you truly want. So I think clarity is the biggest challenge for an entrepreneur. It could be clarity of an idea, clarity of a product, clarity of why you want to be an entrepreneur. I think it starts from there, right? So I think that's the first biggest barrier most people are grappling with, because I've seen people pursue ideas just because they see an opportunity, and they dive into it only to realize that that's not what they want to do.
So as you said, right, the biggest issue now is this FOMO feeling. Everyone wants to start a business, everyone wants to do a startup. So, for that young investor or that young entrepreneur who wants to perhaps, who's looking to start his career, what is your advice to the next generation, to Gen Z, as we call it? Gen Z doesn't want to work, right? All they want to do is start their own businesses. What's your advice to them?
See, I genuinely believe that Gen Z has the best opportunity that there is to become entrepreneurs because most people, which is the Gen Z population that we are talking about, their parents have taken care of the stability of the family. Their parents were able to provide a good quality education, take care of the basic necessities. So, most Gen Zs today are aspirational and not looking just for stability. They're looking for something bigger, larger than themselves, kind of thing. So while they come with the risk appetite, I think that risk appetite and that lack of responsibility of taking something back home may also turn into a disadvantage, because then you become too fragile. You just keep experimenting with ideas, and the smallest of failures you kind of discard ideas. So that advice would be that choose one idea, persist with it, get it right. Don't just discard it very quickly. Don't treat your business like a dating site where you're just going on dates. Like, build a relationship with one idea. And it is, business requires patience. No matter how talented or capable you are, till you get it right, you got to face those failures. So you got to have that persistence.
Business also requires funding, right? And we are going through a very long funding winter, so to speak. Is this a right time to start a business?
I'm actually happy. I was one of the few people in the country who, in 2020, 2021, when funding was at its peak, I was vocal about this is not sustainable. Because the entire narrative of business got changed, right? Everybody started building for raising money, not really getting the product market fit right. Everybody was going out in the market and their target was to please the VC rather than get the customer and the product fitment right. So I have never believed in this thought process that you just build a business out of funding. I mean, you look at the entire MSME ecosystem. The MSME ecosystem, there is 6.3 crore MSME businesses in the country, and they provide at least 30% contribution to the GDP. They create 110 million jobs. They contribute to 49% of the exports of the country. And the entire MSME ecosystem is never seen or perceived as an ecosystem which is viable to receive funding. They do this with limited resources. So I think the entire definition of business itself kind of got diluted because of the over glamorization that funded startups started receiving. And if you look at the contribution of those startups in terms of jobs, in terms of the contribution to the
To
GDP, it's
GDP.
very minuscule, right? But everybody started defining that as entrepreneurship. So I think this correction was required. It's healthy for the business ecosystem. It's also healthy for the startup ecosystem because they become more frugal now. They're looking at building something that is profitable and sustainable, which is a term that didn't exist. So I am all happy for this kind of a funding winter to come in, because I think it's like a correction in the market, right? That's
Yeah.
that's how it is.
That's
Like,
a great time to buy. Yeah.
it's a great time to buy. It's a great time to build. You get the fundamentals right now.
So you were telling me that you coach businesses primarily in the MSME sector and also businesses that are into traditional economy sector, so to speak,
Yeah.
like manufacturing, putting up a plant, factories, etc. For someone who wants to start ground up, right? If someone wants to put up a plant or start a factory or just get into the MSME sector, what are the two or three things that you would advise them to do?
One is either identify an idea or an opportunity where you see yourself working in that space for a long time. You got to build a product that can go out there in the market and be relevant for 10, 20 years if you're going the manufacturing route. Manufacturing requires a lot of infrastructural investment, right? On the other hand, if you're looking at building a services business, ask yourself what's that core skill that you carry and build in the line of skill set. So the way I see it is you got to get your product or service idea right, which means you have to have pre-validated data that people are willing to spend money on this. See, unlike the startup ecosystem, startups are trying to disrupt behaviors and habits. They are creating products for problems sometimes that don't exist. In an MSME environment, you are innovating to improvise an existing product or service where people are willing to spend money. So be clear who is your audience, be clear how is your product or service going to solve their problem differently, and be clear that you have the skills for it. It's not something you can wing in the MSME space because the competition is a lot higher here.
And behaviorally, what is the behavioral traits that one needs to have in order to start a business?
I think one, you got to have clarity of aspiration. Why do you want to start? Are you building a legacy business where you want something to live beyond you 100 years plus? Or are you building a business of financial freedom where you are looking at your business as a vehicle to generate significant amount of income for yourself, and you use that income to make investments in different asset classes where over a period of time you build assets to a point where you don't have to depend on your business for money. So are you building for legacy or are you building for financial freedom? And the one important thing there is that you can't look at one as bigger, the other as smaller. You know, we have this judgment bias that comes in saying, "Oh, legacy sounds sexier, so build for legacy." No, it's okay to be clear, saying, "I'm building it for myself, my family, my lineage that is coming, and financial freedom is my goal." And if you have that clarity, then you can mute the noise. Otherwise, you'll go into this self doubt saying, "वो 21 साल के बच्चे को यूनिकॉर्न वैल्यूएशन मिल रहा है, मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ?" You'll go into those kind of thought process.
And people have that issue, right? Especially in
Yes.
today's digital world. Talking about the digital world, what are your thoughts on this whole creator economy? Do you think it's a bubble?
Um, I believe creators depending on brand deals is a bubble, but creator economy in itself is a beautiful ecosystem that is getting built. Today, you have 14, 15-year-olds who are having career goals like, "I want to become a YouTuber." You didn't have that as a career option, right? For the longest time. So, the way I see it is that the creator economy got built or created at the back of funded startups. 2020, 2021 was the best time to be alive for anyone who was a creator on social media because you had brands throwing money at you for 30-second reels like you would have never imagined. I know people's annual CTC equals was lesser than some of these influencers 30-second reel, right? So
You're
but,
making us all feel bad right now.
but it's the reality of what happened, right? But I think there's again a serious correction happening there. Today, I'm seeing a lot of creators who are realizing that monetization just through brand deals is not sustainable. Brands don't have that kind of money to keep pumping into creators. And second, even their audience has become smarter, right? So if you're going to tell your audience, "Guys, swipe up, click on this link, buy this product," the audience has this defensive guard that has come up.
And there's also a lot of clutter now, right?
Too much clutter, plus certain recommendations didn't go right. You had people losing money because of creators not doing due diligence. So there's a maturity coming in the audience, there's a maturity coming in businesses, they don't have that much surplus. So there is a maturity that has to come into the creator also. And that's why you see a lot of creators today either becoming educators if they are in a niche where education is an opportunity, or you see creators building product brands by themselves where they are identifying a product that fits their audience, that's a natural extension of their personality, which is brilliant again. Or you're seeing creators who are moving away saying that, "I don't have the flair to teach, nor I identify a particular product that my audience will consume, but I built this skill set of optimizing social media platforms." And I've seen creators pivot into building social media agencies, which is also at an early stage, right? Social media as a science is 13, 14 years old. So people are still figuring out this. You ask any business, they'll say, "We need a good digital marketing partner." So creators have that opportunity as well of building social media agencies. That's happening. So I see these three opportunities becoming the long-term future for most creators.
And how did you decide to pivot to becoming a business coach? You were telling us that at the start you were an entrepreneur, you had your own businesses, and then sort of you pivoted to become a coach. When and how did you take that decision?
Um, I think that decision happened to me. I didn't take that decision. I'd be a liar if I said I thought through this kind of a thing. What happened was I started as a 19 and a half year old entrepreneur. Okay, that was the age when I started.
What was your first business?
Quantum Leap, which is my primary business today as well. So I had a background of building a youth organization with a few friends in my graduation days, where we used to run workshops for college students on career, on getting out of relationship dramas. Those are the two things that mattered most to college students. So that's what got me into the space of teaching, education, human behavior. So I learned NLP, learned different coaching models from across the world, fell in love with the entire idea of using coaching for discovering peak performance in an individual. So a natural extension of that youth organization then was, okay, I want to be in the training and coaching space. So okay, let's go to large corporate organizations. And for the first 10 years, did leadership programs, sales programs, behavioral training programs for large organizations. But I felt that in most of these large organizations, training was a checklist item for a HR manager. Ki, we've done 20 modules of this, 10 modules of this, 5 programs of this. And I didn't enjoy that. I didn't want to do just some back end technical like checklist item ki HR initiative mein humne kuch service provide kar liya. I wanted to solve business problems. I come from a business family. My dad was a hardcore retailer, right? So I understood money, I understood business. So I was like, I want to solve business problems. And my own business was struggling for the first 10 years, though I was doing this corporate training and I had an event management business along with my wife because she had a background in events. I started a recruitment business because it was like interconnected, saying trainings, we are talking to HR managers, recruitment will talk to HR managers. I had a BPO of my own because that was the time BPOs were booming and they wanted skill based people out of India building call centers. So I had that. I had 4 businesses, but I was like not able to
Were you
connect the
spreading yourself too thin
too
as well?
thin, too much dependency on myself, always putting all the money back into the business, not being able to take enough back home. So I was a failed entrepreneur for the first 10 years myself. And then reality hit because I went through a financial crisis. I had to shut the BPO down. There was a default in payment, some clients. So that hit me as a entrepreneur. Lost faith in humanity because paise chale gaye. And then after 2 years of wasting my life between 2012 and 2014, I confronted myself. I said, I need to learn how to build a successful business. And saying that to yourself after 8 years is not an easy thing to say. But I said it.
The very fact that you accepted that you're a failed entrepreneur is awareness in itself, right? And what has your biggest learning been from being a failed entrepreneur?
Many. I think is that it's not about having a good quality product or service that's enough to build a successful business. You need to have the right model and the right marketing as well. So I always was good at teaching. Okay, I always got great feedback from my clients when I worked with corporates, but I didn't have the right model of monetization. And I came from this school of thought saying my work will speak for me. I don't have to market myself. So those two were my biggest lessons from those first 10 years. Then I said, okay, I want to learn. And that's when the book happened, the interviews happened. The interviews gave me direction about various models that exist in the industry. Then I kind of built a model for myself. And from there, MSMEs happened. And then I started hand holding MSMEs. I say I'm in a very gifted profession today because I get to learn and I get paid for learning. Okay, so it's a brilliant space
It's a
to be in.
win-win.
I'm not complaining.
So, when you talk about building a business, today I think it's the toughest to build a business, more so because of there's so much disruption, right? Every few years technology would change. Now every few months technology is changing with AI and everything. So how do you know which way the wind is blowing, and how does one really figure out how to stay relevant?
I would say that you will become irrelevant if you're always thinking about where is the wind blowing. I genuinely believe that lasting organizations or built to last companies have been built on core capabilities and solving the most obvious problems. Like, I'll give you an example. I built a business coaching business for MSMEs starting 2016. COVID happened, and within the first 15 days of the lockdown, everybody became a trainer or a coach. Everyone launched a webinar and started monetizing online. And because everyone started positioning themselves as a trainer and coach, distrust in the market also increased because people ended up in webinars and they were like, okay, what the hell? There's pure promotion happening over here. I'm not learning anything. So distrust increased. But I was a big believer that, hey, if we are good at something, let's wait for this wind to pass. Okay. And the audience matured. The audience started distinguishing between a snake oil salesperson versus someone who can really solve problems. The audience built that intelligence. The marketing costs went through the roof for people running performance marketing campaigns in COVID just to attract audiences. But someone who had a hand holding solution where it was not a one time motivational webinar or seminar, and had a support system for their audiences, build larger communities. So I always believe that trends will come and go. I mean, let's look at tech as a space, right? uh, you had people for the longest time talking crypto, crypto, crypto. Then you had people talking blockchain, NFTs. Then you have people talking AI. uh, Tell me, in the last 4 years
And there was
alone,
metaverse in the
okay,
middle.
and metaverse in middle, tell me, in the last 4 years, which brands have emerged in these spaces and have built sustainable, profitable businesses?
None of them.
None. So it's never about trends. Like, even though there's so much talk about AI today, my perspective on AI is an integration. It's a feature. I don't see anyone building a profitable business in AI because the audience is not at all loyal. Okay, I will use it till it's free, and I will use something else because I hear from someone else. I feel there are more AI content creators than there are AI businesses in the country, right?
Probably,
Yeah.
probably that is the case.
So you never build around trends,
Yeah.
and that's where a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs get it wrong. They are looking for the right opportunity. I'm saying, look, don't look outside, look inside. Where do you have capability? Where do you have real problem solving ability? Bet on that.
So, Rajiv, since you do help a lot of businesses grow and scale up, one big part of the business community is employees, right?
Yep, yep.
So, what's your take on this 70-hour work week?
So, firstly, I think if you watch the entire interview where Narayan Murthy ji was speaking, the 70-hour phrase got blown up way beyond what it actually was in the context of what he was saying. He was more talking about productivity and discipline. Now, I come up from a school of thought. Firstly, I feel I am no one to comment on a statement from a man like Mr. Narayan Murthy. He put India out to the world, right? He created opportunities that none of us in our lifetime will be able to create. But I feel I've never been a big believer that your work is your life. I've always been a big believer that your work is a part of your life, it's not your life. And It's very counterintuitive for a business coach to say that, right? You expect a business coach to kind of come and say your work is your life, and that's what. No, I don't believe that. I think work is a vehicle to live a better quality of life, and that's why most people, even after achieving money, fame, success, live very emotionally hollow lives because the foundations are not right. The relationships haven't fallen in place. The health hasn't fallen in
Because
place.
there's just no time
Yeah,
if
there's
you're working 70
yeah,
hours a week.
and you're just chasing, right? So I feel if you are someone who loves 70 hours a week, do 70 hours a week. But I've also seen enough people who do 30, 40 hours a week, have mastered the capability in their craft, have made significant impact to their work. So it's not like the work is getting compromised because of 30, 40 hours a week. They're really good at what they do. So they can produce the result and output in 30 to 40 hours a week. So they're impacting their work. They're impacting India economically. At the same time, they have clarity to say, you know what, there are other things that are important to me. And they have eliminated this fear of judgment of what people will say or think about them, saying 30, 40 hours is enough. For me, I respect that a lot more. But if you are someone who thrives on 70, go for 70. But please know that you can't say, I am a 70-hour person and my family has to understand that. Then you are enforcing your preference and not giving joy to the ones who really matter to you.
I also think the 70-hour work week culture was a culture that existed in the past, right? In the previous generation. The new generation is very different. They
I
work
don't
smart and they don't work so
I
hard.
don't even think 70R ever existed even in the past generation. See, it's like this. An argument can be that if you don't put 70 hours, then an Infosys wouldn't have gotten built, which is a reality. Okay. But does everyone want to build that? It's a question. So I don't like, I personally feel that statement was taken out of context, but I also feel it's an important thing to let people know that you do you. And that's most important. Yeah.
I absolutely, I completely agree. I am not of the opinion that you need to work 70 hours a week because, at the end of the day, I feel like personally I'm more productive if I work lesser number of hours
Yeah.
and give it my best at that time and then go back home to my family rather than killing myself at work
Yeah.
and then just, doing FaceTime in the office, right? So,
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the way I function, but I'm sure people think differently. But talking about the younger generation, right? And I'm sure you deal with a lot of them as well as you coach people. What is the biggest issue that the younger generation is facing now, right now, which is preventing them from reaching their maximum capacity in terms of productivity?
I think the disadvantage the younger generation has is overexposure. The amount of content they are consuming, the amount of opportunities that they are bombarded with, the amount of information that they are exposed to, actually is creating this mythical promised land in their mind where they are like, okay, I took up this job, I don't feel the vibe. Let's find something more. I went to something else. It's not paying me enough. Let's find something else. So there's this perpetual chase
To
in
find happiness.
to find happiness, to find their zone, and I think that's the disadvantage they have.
But don't you think that's an issue with millennials as well?
Not as much as it is with the younger ones. Not as much. I'm a millennial,
So
technically
am I.
speaking, right? But I feel what we millennials had is we had a reference point of the previous generation, the sacrifices, the hardships, and all of that. The younger ones today probably haven't seen that, right? They've seen stability. We came from families which had to play survival. And again, I'm not generalizing. I still feel, based on your socioeconomic background, there are people who are coming out of environments of poverty and they will probably live the cycle that our parents lived for their own families. But I'm talking about the larger, the audience that we're talking about, which today wants to hustle, wants to figure out what's their big goal.
Don't you think a lot of us have also are victims of conditioning where we are taught to sort of glorify overworking, we are taught
Yeah.
to glorify sacrifice,
Yeah.
and the new generation is just free of that
Yeah,
conditioning.
because their parents took care of standard of living. No? Their parents took care of standard of living, so they don't have to worry about standard of living. Like I put this analogy out, I think in 2018 or 19, where I said there was a workforce in the industrial revolution which went to work for survival. Then there was a workforce in the information revolution. That's where your IT, BT, financial services sectors grew. That generation went to work for standard of living. Ki acha ghar lena hai, EMI, I have to be able to pay through my salary. Car EMI, I should be able to pay through my salary. So there was a survival driven workforce. There was a standard of living driven workforce. And then I think after 2008, 2009, we started seeing a social revolution happening in the world where you had social media. So people were driven by connection, wanting to be a part of a workplace that can take care of them, respect them. It was not a boss is always right. But I think post pandemic, so we've gone from industrial revolution to information revolution to social revolution to today we are talking about a freedom and independent revolution. I don't want to get married. I don't want to be bound by one particular career option. I want to explore. So it's a very, I want to explore, but the desire to explore is largely coming out of FOMO. It's not coming up out of freedom. Okay, it's not coming out of self-expression. It's coming out of the desire to find joy, and there's a perception that something outside will give me joy, which is the dangerous part.
Okay, that's interesting. So, before we wind up, being a business coach, and of course, all of us here are salaried, right? At some point, every salaried person wants to start a business. That's their eventual dream or goal. They don't want to work for someone else, they just want to work for themselves. Demystify that for us. Is it worth making that switch? And what are the 2 or 3 things you need to keep in mind when you do that?
See, if the desire is there, you got to honor that desire at least once in your lifetime. Okay. If you have this desire that I want to start my own business, please experience it. It's a beautiful experience. Having said that, the wrong reasons to start a business would be I want to be my own boss. Well, that reason of I want to be my own boss is coming because you probably don't like your existing boss. Okay. Or I want to have free time. That thought process is coming probably because you feel overworked with what you're doing today. If the thought process is like, I want to make a ton of money. Yes, you can make a ton of money out of a business, but rule out that opportunity and option in the first 2 years at least. So the right reason to start a business has to be that here's a product or service I believe I can create, which can solve XYZ problem for ABC audience, and I believe I can make it profitable and scalable. If that's the zone you start from, then you are kind of reducing your learning curve because you're not going to enter business for the wrong reasons. The first 2.5, 3 years for any business, time for yourself is a myth. Taking money back home is a myth. And this thing of I want to be my own boss, well, world has changed today. Today, when you start a business, you are at a disadvantage. Your employees dictate more terms to you. So you'll find new bosses who technically in hierarchy are lower than you, but you got to fulfill their desires. Your customers become your bosses because they know you are desperate in the early stages, so they dictate terms. So neutralize all those three factors.
So you always have a boss, either it's
Yeah,
your employees or your customers.
you always have to be in service. Okay, it's just that you got to find the right kind of people who value the service you're providing.
So before we end, there's this new sort of, I don't know if it's a fad, but at least it's a trend that's picking up where a lot of entrepreneurs across industries are building their own personal brand as well. Maybe it's a marketing tool. It's working for some, may not work for others. But how do you feel about it?
So the way I see it is, in general, marketing as a business function has gained relevance in the last 15 years with social media. Till then, you always heard businesses use sales and marketing, and marketing was more like a door opening, relationship building opportunity before the sale could happen. But in the last 15 years, marketing has become a science in itself. So today, you are looking at business, looking at marketing, and then selling to the people we are marketing to. Under marketing, I believe personal branding and content marketing will become a science in itself, where businesses will have departments 10, 15 years from now, where there'll be a content marketing department, then there'll be a marketing for lead generation department, and then there'll be a sales department. So that's the way I see it. Now, why is this happening? Number one, the amount of content people are consuming is going through the roof. Second to second, it's increasing in the world. The amount of content that is getting created is going through the roof. And what businesses and entrepreneurs have realized today is that people relate more to a person than they relate to a logo. So if I know the person, if I am seeing this person, I'm listening to this person, I'm being exposed to their journey, then there's an affinity that is getting built, which is an affinity a brand's logo cannot create. Right? So businesses are seeing an advantage in personal branding, in content creation.
But is it essential for a brand owner to build their own personal brand as well? Or do you think brands can survive in today's day and age even without personal branding?
You can survive, uh, but building a personal brand will give you an advantage. Now, if it hits a critical mass, like with social media's adoption in every business has hit a critical mass today.
Has it helped you with you have over like 500,000 followers
Yeah,
on Instagram, for example. Has that helped you with your organic reach?
absolutely. So while we run performance marketing campaigns for our services, the fact that my Instagram reach is increasing, the organic traffic contributing to the business has increased tremendously, and it's also reduced the performance marketing cost of acquisition because there is familiarity, so people are willing to click and see what exactly is this person offering. So I genuinely think that personal branding, content marketing is like the real estate of 1990s. We've all had this experience in our own cities where we are traveling in a car and one of your parents looks at a real estate property and says, Pata hai, in 1990, this property had come for sale for 3 lakh rupees. And I said, no, and today it's 35 crores. The same is going to happen with content marketing and audience attention. If you are going to be 10, 15 years from now traveling in a car and you tell your kids, in 2023, the cost of acquiring a lead on social media was XYZ, or if you made 10 videos, your followers could go up by these many hundred followers in a week. You don't want your children to look at you and feel the thoughts that you felt when your parents told you that this was 3 lakhs is 30 crores. In your head, you're like, you made pathetic financial decisions, right? So you don't want your children to do that with you. So social media adoption, content creation, focusing on building a personal brand, not a necessity today, but will become an asset for a business over the next 5 to 7 years.
Okay, on that note, Rajiv, thanks a lot for joining us on CNBC TV 18. It was a great speaking to you. I didn't even realize how half an hour just flew, but thank you so much for being with us.
Pleasure's mine, Sonia. Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching CNBC TV 18. For all the latest news and updates, do follow us on our social media platforms.